In this video lecture, we will be talking about the Modern Women's Unit, which goes from the 1950s to about the 1970s. And understanding class tomorrow, we will be talking about what happened to women really after they gained the right to vote. But most of you probably know that World War II occurs really from 1939 to about 1945, and it had a great impact on the United States, who joined the war December 8th, 1941, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and women played a key role. If you think of Rosie the Riveter, which we'll be talking about, you would know that women were encouraged to work, and they really did help the war effort. But in the 1950s, you're going to see that's going to be changed, and women are going to be told to go back to the cult of domesticity. Just to give you an example, a very popular magazine, McCall's Magazine, said the ideal couple was a man and a woman who married very young, like right out of high school typically. They had a large family and centered their lives on their children and their homes. You're going to see that the fertility rate is going to greatly go up, and so many of these veterans that come home, they're going to quickly get married, and women are going to be encouraged to get married also. And an American baby is born every 7 seconds, and that is the baby boom. If you are a baby boomer, you were born between 1945 and 1960. You also see during this time period there's an increase in life expectancy, typically because of different vaccines and advancement in medicine from, about 65 years old to 70 years old in 1970. The baby boom generation will have a huge impact on society. Please ask your parents if they are a baby boomer. The role of the mother is stress. Dr. Spock, he wrote a book called Baby and Child Care in 1946. This is going to be popular throughout the 50s and 60s. And if you think back to what we've talked about in history, children weren't necessarily, especially in the 19th century, really paid a lot of attention to. It was kind of like the family didn't change, the parents didn't change because they had children. And now you're going to see with Dr. Spock's book, now there's going to be this focus really on child rearing, creating this positive attitude. Don't spank, don't beat your children. It's almost like kids kind of ruled the house, and what they wanted to do was the main focus. So you had to create this atmosphere of warmth, intimacy, and trust. And what you're going to see in the 1950s, it doesn't matter if a woman wanted to be a housewife or not. This was her only option, and that's what's important. So again, we're not going to trash or say if you want to be a housewife, you shouldn't be. But this was the only option for women. A woman's place was in the home. Domesticity ruled again. The nation's education system will track girls to say you need to take home education, which is like cooking and sewing classes in high school. Guidance counselors really advise girls, don't miss the boat, meaning they really encourage a lot of teenage love and teenage dating, because you would in high school find the person that you would spend the rest of your life with. Women also earned more college degrees in the 20s and 30s than they did in the 50s, because again, a woman's place was in the home, and why get a college education when you were going to marry your high school sweetheart? So 1950s, you're going to be reading a lot of things in your packet about. They had very specific advertisements just for women. So if you did work outside the home, you were a secretary, and really your boss and men in the workplace would say anything to you. So there was a lot of sexual discrimination, what we would consider today, and you would be in typical female traditionally jobs, and you really wouldn't have a say. 95% of all eligible people within the marrying age got married, and not everybody needs to get married. So you're going to see there's going to be this huge backlash in the 1960s and 70s. Women were breaking the glass ceiling. We call this the second feminist wave, because the 1950s were such a time period of conformity. Women did not have a choice. So here's our essential question: the feminist movement go too far, not far enough in helping women achieve equality? You're going to see a lot of things go on in the 1960s. For example, President Kennedy, even though we know today he did not treat women very kindly as far as his own marital status and all the affairs that he had, he did establish when he was president a commission on the status of women. So they did an investigation, they did studies, and they found that women were discriminated like a separate class, like a minority class. In the workplace, there was a lot of discrimination in pay. Women got paid a lot less, and if you were in a career, you had a real slim chance of career advancement. Understand that in the 50s, when you were paid, when a male was paid, he was kind of paid this household income. And you're going to see that the economy is going to start to change in the 60s and specifically in the 70s to where women have to work full-time. Not all of them, but about by the time we get to the 1970s, about 40% of women have to be full-time workers. And the economy has changed to where you can't just have a man work at home, and that's going to be a big factor in this also. Betty Friedan wrote a very famous book called The Feminine Mystique. It became a bestseller. You will read part of that in your packet this week. And she talked about the problem that has no name. Now, Betty Friedan was like most women in the 50s, is that she got married because that's what society expected of her. She had children, and her children in her home, it was really her life. And she said it's a problem that has no name. And she was talking about this emptiness that women felt because their only course in life was really domesticity. Here's a picture of Betty Friedan. She wrote her book in 1963. Something that also happens in 1964, along with that commission that studied women done by President Kennedy or authorized by Kennedy, in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, sex was added along with race, creed, and color and natural origin. And this is going to be a big reason why we're going to see Title IX will happen, which we'll talk about soon. Betty Friedan was one of the organizers and helped found the National Organization for Women called NOW, and their goal was full equality for all women. They are going to campaign to gain passage of the Equal Rights Amendment at the state level. And some issues today, if you go to their website, they are really fighting for to end workplace discrimination. They also fight for abortion rights, and they want to end violence against women, and they want to obviously end sexism. How the women's movement really started and what they would do, they would have these small discussion groups that sprang up all over the country, and women would talk about their own personal problems, how they felt inadequate, how they felt there was something more besides just being a housewife and a mother. And you would see that in these groups, women shared this sense of sisterhood, and they understood that their personal problems were really similar to others. A women's liberation group will crown in 1968 a live sheep Miss America. They will also burn some bras. So you're going to see these women are going to start to get attention. And where they get some of their tactics, they are really influenced by the civil rights movement of the 60s, and they're going to continue to fight for women's rights. So you'll see August 1970, there is this huge parade for women, and again, they're going to focus on abortion rights. They're going to focus on ending discrimination at the workplace and unequal pay. 1972, on March 22nd, Congress will approve the Equal Rights Amendment. This is a parade for equal rights women. If you don't remember what the Equal Rights Amendment was, it was actually introduced by our friend Alice Paul. And it's men and women shall have equal rights throughout the United States in every place subject to its jurisdiction. This was first introduced in 1923, and it finally passes Congress in 1972. It makes all forms of discrimination illegal. Question is, will it pass? I will tell you it will not. Phyllis Schlafly, she's actually from St. Louis. She led a counterattack against the Equal Rights Amendment. People that supported the Equal Rights Amendment thought, again, the law would not see sex, would not see gender. People like Phyllis Schlafly, she's going to be supported by the Republican Party. She supports what's called the Eagle Forum, and she supported that a woman's place was in the home, and she will say that if this is passed, then women will be drafted, women will lose custody of their children. The Equal Rights Amendment did not gain the 38 needed states that it needed to pass. Oh, you can see here, Missouri did not pass it, and it still has not passed. Also, one thing that you're going to see in the modern women's rights movement is that women are going to again, force for equality in education and in sports. We'll be talking about this in class, but this woman is trying to run the Boston Marathon, and this man really does not want her to do it. And her trainer is right here, and her boyfriend right there trying to stop this man from pushing her out of an all-male race. Understanding that even as late as the 1970s, men did not think that women could compete and that women should be athletes. Congress will pass Title IX, And understand it is for sports, but it's also for education. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal assistance. So, again, public schools, if you're going to have a football team, you have to have another sport for females to participate in. You will see this is going to be a huge thing that occurs. If you're going to have a medical program, you have to accept females. You have to. So just to kind of tell you and kind of show you the difference, again, just comparing 2 decades, you're going to see the increase in medical degrees, law degrees, and advanced degrees, and you will see today that women hold more higher education degrees than males. This is going to be a huge thing for females in high school and college education and sports. This is all that we're going to have for today. Be prepared to have a quiz on this at the very beginning of class on Friday, and then we're going to talk more about these issues. You're going to read The Feminine Mystique. We're going to talk about this marathon and what happened to these women. Enjoy your snow day.